Hello, this is Robert Stearns. Hey, I want to thank you for tuning in. I really believe that learning is one of the greatest joys in life. And one of the greatest ways to learn is simply to have meaningful conversations, both with those who come from a similar background as yours, as well as those whose background might be very different. So my hope is that as we connect and converse with leaders from all around the world, that we will learn and grow together. If you're new with us, hit the subscribe button and we'll deliver the new episodes to you right away. So wherever you are, on a run, in the car, at the kitchen table with some coffee, welcome to the conversation. Hey everyone, here we are. It is Thursday night. Bishop and the Rabbi, fantastic to be together. Come on in and sign on in. Let me know wow, the room is filling up already. You've all been waiting. Harry and Dee are here from Estero. Terry is here from Indiana. Hello, Laverne from Brooklyn. There's Laverne getting the point. She said, I already shared. Good job, Laverne. June is here from Bolingbrook, Illinois. We've got Connie here from Ohio. Christopher Holmes from Holton, Maine. Christopher, are you a first timer? Because I don't recall having folks from Maine too often. Hi, Patty. So good to see Patty here tonight. Ryan, that is hysterical. Ryan says, the leaven is out and the bishop and the rabbi are in. That is right, Ryan. I am impressed that you have got that down. Michael Sains, God bless you. Michael Sains, good to see you. Lynn Gonzalez, God bless you. Trisha Miller is here from Boston. David Krause from Pennsylvania. Denise from Youngstown, Ohio. Jennifer's here, Lancaster, New York. Folks, we have folks here from all over the country. You know your first job tonight is to hit the share button. Please do that right now. Please help us get the word out about what? About Jerusalem-centered Christianity. We are a group of people who believe that Jesus did not come to start a new religion. He did not come to start new religion. The Bible says that Jesus affirmed the connection to Moses and the prophets, and that we stand against this concept of replacement theology that God is done with Israel, done with the Jewish people. We believe our God is a God of covenantal continuity. And my goodness, guys, everybody's here today. Pastor James Zintgraff is here from Texas. More Texans. Texas is in the house tonight. Port Arthur, Texas. If it's your first time, say first time. Everybody say hi to Christopher Holmes. It's his first time from Maine. God bless you, Maine. Diana is here from Anaheim, California. My goodness. Fort Myers, Florida. Janice, it was so good to see you at our partners breakfast 2 Saturday mornings ago. And let me just say, I'm looking forward to this Saturday. I will be in Cranford, New Jersey, and I'll be ministering Saturday evening at the Resting Place. And you can just find Resting Place. I'm sure it's on our website. I sure hope it is. They'll get it on the website if it's not, and or Facebook. So we're at Resting Place Saturday evening at 7:30 p.m., but I'll have a partners brunch for our stakeholders and watchmen of the wall on the wall partners. If you're not partnering, would you please consider becoming a partner with us? Friend of Israel, $18 a month. Key of David, $36. Watchman on the Wall, $72 a month. Help us in all we do. We run our 2 feeding centers in Israel. Abraham's Bread. We have a feeding center on the Sea of Galilee and a feeding center in Jerusalem, right across the street from United Hatzalah headquarters. And we're taking young pastors to Israel. We have the Day of Prayer for the Peace of Jerusalem. All of our outreaches. When you become a partner, you help us do that. And whenever I travel, I try to have lunches or breakfasts with our partners. So this Saturday morning, for our stakeholders and watchmen, I've got a private breakfast, just me and you, that will be Saturday morning. Call the office if you have not yet registered for that. If you are a stakeholder or watchman, then Saturday night, I'm at Resting Place. Join me there. And then Sunday morning, I will be at Calvary Tabernacle in Cranford, New Jersey. I always have to pause because there's a Calvary Temple in Wayne and a Calvary Tabernacle in Cranford, and I get them mixed up sometimes. So it's great to see Janet and Chris here tonight. So good to see folks in from all over the country. It's going to be an incredible night. I can't wait to introduce our guest in just a moment from now. A few other quick announcements. You have just a couple days to register for our trip to Israel. We are going to Israel. I have been to Israel about 100 times since 1994. I've taken about 25,000 people with me to Israel. Most of them have returned. No, I'm kidding. They've all returned. They've all come back. And we want you to go to Israel this year, and you save $100 if you register before the 31st. So go to Park Avenue Synagogue is here. My goodness, Mr. Michael Harris, welcome. So great to have you with us from Park Avenue Synagogue. Welcome. Beloit, Wisconsin is here. Marcy, welcome from Beloit. So join us in Israel September 27th through October the 8th. We cannot wait. We already have about 3 dozen of you registered to join. So get in on that. You save $100 if you register before the 31st. Abraham's Bread I've already mentioned, but go to eagleswings.org/bless Israel. Then Torah Tuesdays with Mark Gerson. Everybody join our weekly global Bible study. We have about 100 people studying Torah every single Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern time with Mark Gerson, who has just, guys, listen up. Today, Mark was named bestseller on the Los Angeles Times bestseller list. So go over to Mark's Facebook page, The Rabbi's Husband, and congratulate him. Say, Bishop Robert told me to come congratulate you. His best-selling book hit the LA Times bestsellers list, The Telling, and most of you have received that. Kenneth has just signed in. Kenneth, where are you watching from? And God bless you, sir. Dawn Borowski, I would love to come back, Lenny and Dawn, to Calvary Temple, and please greet your pastor for me. I ran in to Pastor Battistella, your new pastor there. I ran into him in the middle of Jerusalem. I was at a coffee shop in Jerusalem, and I turned around, and there was Pastor Matthew. Hi, Mom. Mom is here. Mom Loretta is here. Love you, Mom, so much. All right, everybody. This is an important night. We are in full-on preparation for Pesach. Pesach is just hours away, beginning Saturday night, right after Shabbat. But the preparations for Pesach have already begun. I don't want to steal any thunder from our guest, but tonight was a very special night in preparation for Pesach. And so I will let him know, or I will let him explain to us why tonight is special as we prepare. But this is the very first time that we have the honor and the privilege of welcoming a very, very unique leader in the Jewish community. Rabbi Mark Wilds is with us tonight. Now, Rabbi Wilds is a rabbi. He also happens to be an attorney. But he felt listen to this, everybody. He felt a very special calling from Hashem. He felt a very special burden, a very special calling from God. And it's a calling that a lot of us in Eagle's Wings can relate to. He looked out and he saw so many younger Jews, successful, involved in many things, but slipping away from the roots of their traditions, from the roots of their Judaism. And he said, I have to find a way to reach out to the next generation. And those of you who've been a part of the Eagles Wings community now for decades know that we always have been about how do we touch and impact young people's lives, whether they start in high school with us or college and young adults, etc. And so Rabbi Mark Wilds started what is known as the Manhattan Jewish Experience. The Manhattan Jewish Experience. And the inspiration for this really came from this incredible sense of love and community that he felt every week at the Shabbat table. He shares the story of how his mother just would always provide the most beautiful Shabbat experience. And they would always welcome in the community and welcome in new friends. And you've heard me say over and over and over again, the famous saying that the Jews kept Shabbat, and so Shabbat kept the Jews. And this blend, folks, listen to me, this blend of food and family and faith and music and prayer that all comes together at Shabbat, and the importance of Shabbat, it made God's top 10 list. It's right up there. Do not murder, do not steal, do not commit adultery. And yet we treat Shabbat so flippantly. We treat it so superficially. But the impact of Shabbat made a permanent impression on Rabbi Mark Wild's life. And as he surveyed the young Jewish community in Manhattan, he said, we cannot lose the next generation. And so he started the Manhattan Jewish Experience. He's going to share more with us tonight about that, but he's also going to share with us about Passover. I want you to give a huge Eagles Wings welcome to our first-time guest, Rabbi Mark Wilds. Rabbi, we are so blessed and honored, and I have to say grateful, because I know tonight is a very busy night in preparation for Pesach. Thank you for being with us, sir.
It is such an honor, Bishop. I really appreciate the warm welcome, and I cannot think of a greater way of preparing for my own Passover with our community than by being a guest and having a conversation with you and your incredible following. I cannot believe, if you don't mind me just jumping in, 25,000 people you've brought to Israel. That's just unbelievable. That's just incredible.
My 14-year-old twins have been there 17 times.
That's unbelievable. God bless you. That's really, really amazing. And I have never heard a better commercial for the Sabbath than the one you just gave. It is excellent. And it's all true. Faith, family, music, prayer. You said it beautifully. It's the emes, as they say in French. It's the truth. And it's, I always say also that that is the commandment in the Bible that is responsible for more people coming back to their faith, at least in the Jewish religion, than perhaps any other one of the 613 commandments. So I appreciate those very positive words.
Rabbi, it's so interesting, and we're going to get to Pesach and specifically tonight with Chametz in just a moment. But one of the programs that we at Eagles Wings feel so passionately about, and Mark and Erica Gerson have been so supportive of, is we find young evangelical pastors who have not yet been to Israel and who really don't have any affiliation with Israel. And we sponsor them and we bring them on a trip, because too often pastors don't go to Israel till they're in their 60s, their 70s. It's kind of on their bucket list. And towards the end of their career, they take that trip. Well, they've lost a whole 30 or 40 years of connection and preaching and revelation and all this because they go so late. So we bring them, we identify tomorrow's leaders, and we bring them in their 20s and their early 30s, and we get a heart for Israel into them. And all these wonderful folks who are our partners, they are really the incredible folks who help sponsor that. But what I wanted to say was this, Rabbi. Every single trip, and we've brought over 300 young pastors from coast to coast to Israel specifically. And we come back and you think they've seen the Kotel, they've seen the Sea of Galilee, they've seen Independence Hall in Tel Aviv, they've seen all these places. And we do a survey and we say, what was the thing that impacted you the most? Rabbi, can I tell you? Over 90% of them say, because we always bring them to an official Shabbat dinner, a real Shabbat meal. 90% of them say, I will never forget the feeling of the Sabbath. I will never forget being there and seeing the parents bless their children, seeing the candles lit, hearing the blessing. It's a transformative experience, and it was transformative for you in your childhood.
It was transformative. My mother of blessed memory, in whose memory I began the Manhattan Jewish Experience, and thank you for speaking so beautifully about our organization. We're 22 years old. But I saw around my Shabbat table, we would just bring home, anyone who was not so affiliated, and immediately just the warmth. You mentioned my teacher and mentor, Rabbi Shlomo Riskin, who I know you have a close relationship with. He famously said, he coined the term, he says, for the price of a chicken, you can save a Jew, he said, because that's what it is. And it really goes back to Abraham, because if you look at Abraham, That's the way he was promoting the belief in a one and only God, was by bringing people in and showing kindness, and that link between being a kind-hearted, spirited human being and belief in God, because we're all created in God's image. So there's no question, and I'm not surprised that 90% of your trip attendees report back that was the most powerful. And there's so many other power. You just mentioned the coattail and the Sea of the Galilee. Yeah. I mean, it's hard. That's a tough call, but I'm not surprised. You'd be very surprised how many young Jewish people have little or nothing to do with any kind of formal Jewish life, never really celebrated the Sabbath. Maybe they come on the high holidays. The Passover Seder we're going to talk about is actually the most popular amongst American Jews Jewish ritual. But the Sabbath, as you said, we're a little flippant about it. So I appreciate the plug. I do.
Well, and by the way, I had the privilege twice of having Shabbat dinner in Efrat with Rabbi Riskin and Vicky in their home. So wow. I've twice had Shabbat dinner in their home in Efrat. Wow. Well, Rabbi, tonight is a very special night, and we were just 2 minutes late starting because we wanted to honor tonight. Tonight is the night, one of the nights, you're in the middle. We're coming up to the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is another name for Pesach. And so there can't be any leaven in the house. So this is spring cleaning. Spring cleaning is happening all over Jewish homes. Talk to us a little bit about that, and bring us from there, segue into teaching us about the power of Passover.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm sitting at my dining room table right now. 15 minutes ago, we were vacuuming and getting rid of whatever little crumbs are left. And it seems like a sort of like a minuscule, insignificant kind of ritual. But let me bring it down to earth, if you will. The Exodus from Egypt is a major, major part of our theology. And not just the Jewish theology, the Christian theology as well, of course, because the Exodus from Egypt was the first time that God, we believe, in the Bible is seen extending his hand to those who are victimized and oppressed. We see God having a relationship with Adam and Eve, of course, with Abraham and Sarah, with Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob, and he's got this individual, but it's the first time that you see the Almighty coming to the aid of an oppressed, victimized people, demonstrating one of the most important theological tenets of Judaism, that God is not only a God of creation, but a God of history. In fact, God introduces himself to the Jewish people at Sinai with the first of the 10 commandments. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, he says, I'm the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt. He doesn't say I'm the Lord your God who created the world. Now, the creation of the world was a really important moment for God and for human existence. But God chooses to introduce himself as the God who takes the Jews out of Egypt. Why? Because, of course, it's important that we believe God created the world. We certainly do. But it's more important to believe that God didn't just create the world, set it on automatic timer, and take off. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people in the world who believe in the God of creation, creationists, but don't really believe that God is still involved in their lives, that God is still involved in history. And that is why I think that we almost obsess over the Exodus. Jews recite the Shema twice a day, the declaration of our belief in God, but it's a belief in the God who took the Jews out of the land of Egypt. That's the third paragraph of the Shema. When we recite grace after meals, we reference the Exodus from Egypt. And I mentioned before, it's the 10 Commandments. And then once a year, we sit around a table and we reenact the whole, we're not the only people that have been enslaved and subsequently emancipated. But I don't know any other nation that, thinks about it, talks about it. It's part of our liturgy, part of our theology. Why? Because it goes back to this issue of believing in not only of a God, a distant God who once created the world but is nowhere to be found, but a God who's listening to our prayers, a God who's intervening in history, a God who not only creates but cares. And I think that's one of the reasons why we go crazy. Now, what does it have to do with the unleavened bread? And we eat this matzah, and we stay away from chametz, and Jews throughout the world are ridding their homes of chametz, which is just fermented bread, if you will. And the reason, and this is very, very interesting, the Torah says that the reason you should eat matzah, ki b'chipazon, in Exodus it says, ki b'chipazon yatsatem mimitzrayim, because you were taken out of Egypt in a haste. Now, why is it important that we were taken out of Egypt in a haste? Right? We were in the middle of baking bread, and we had to sort of drop the bread and go. Now, why is that significant? It only matters that we got out. What does it matter if we took our sweet old time, or we had to leave in a rush? And the great German Jewish philosopher, Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, a 19th century philosopher, he said something very simple. The fact that the Jews were involved in doing something as mundane as baking bread when they should have been leaving Egypt demonstrates something very important, that this was not some kind of revolution against the oppressive Pharaoh regime. The Jews were not planning some kind of revolt. If they were, then I would imagine they would have known when they were leaving, and they wouldn't be baking bread when they were supposed to go. The fact that they were baking bread when God said, drop it, we're going, is a demonstration, suggests Rav Hirsch, that God is behind this event, that God is orchestrating this event. And it's not a humanly... Now, we have stories, the Hanukkah story where the Jews rise up, and we have the modern state of Israel where we take sort of history in our own hands. We have examples, but this is not that. The Exodus from Egypt is an example of God's mighty hand in history. And it's supposed to inspire us to always look for God's hand wherever we go, in whatever event in history. And that's what matzah represents. That's why it's thin. The thin matzah represents humility, that you don't just see yourself as the cause of everything that happens in life. You're big enough, if you will, to see God. And chametz, the leavened bread, it's bloated. It's filled with itself. It represents the ego that sometimes entertains the notion that it's only we push the buttons. I get this degree, I get this job, I went to Harvard, I worked really hard. And we pull God out of the equation. Well, in Judaism, the equation's all about God. And matzah represents seeing God in history. Chametz represents denying God in history.
Rabbi, a lot of people are commenting here on this comment that you made, that we serve a God who not only creates, but a God who cares. You're getting that's kind of like the tweetable comment so far from this tonight. But this is so important, because in today's modern world, we're filled with people who will say, well, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. And yeah, I believe there's a force. I believe there's some, there was some, divine architect behind everything, but, you can't really know him. You can't really walk him out. And in so doing, they remove themselves not only from any sense of responsibility, but really from the joy of, to put it in Jewish parlance, the joy of wrestling with God. The joy of encountering the divine, of mining out from the scriptures, from the Torah, from the prophets, of wrestling with the concepts and of welcoming the presence of God, of sanctifying time and knowing that God is holy. So you're saying God is not only the creator God, but he's the caring God. He's present in the midst of everything. And he was present there as they came out of Egypt. They didn't come out as great victors in their mind, right? Because even after they're out, Moses is having to deal with the fact God says, we've got to take them around the long way. They can't go the short way, because if they go the short way and they find battle, they're going to run back, because they're still slaves in their mind. So it's not only an external slavery, but there's the internal slavery, thought patterns, the self-talk, what we're telling ourselves, how we relate to our community. Are we going to stay victims, or are we going to come into a new identity? And all of this is wrapped up in the Exodus story.
Yeah. It took 40 years. You said that beautifully. It took 40 years for the Jews to get out of Egypt. I always say, because you could take the Jew out of Egypt, but not the Egypt out of the Jew so quickly. And they were grappling with believing in themselves and believing in God, of course. And it's not a simple thing. And, going back to what you said before about, I serve a very young population, 20s and 30s, and they're amazing. I love my students and I love the work I get to do because they're smart and intelligent and educated, and they are spiritual. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is that spirituality without a path is going to leave you without a relationship ultimately. And the goal here is to have a relationship with God. And you can't have a relationship with God if you don't have some sort of prescription you believe comes from God to connect with him. And that's of course what the Bible is about. But we don't have to go to the other extreme and make believe we understand everything. We don't understand everything, and we can't really pretend to fully grasp the infinity and the absolute power and knowledge of God. We don't. We're mere mortals. However, that doesn't mean we haven't been given this gift. You know, you spoke about the Sabbath like it was a gift. The Torah is a gift. The Bible is a gift. It's God's recipe for our relationship with him. But that doesn't mean because we believe in it, we're pretending to understand everything. We don't know everything. Humility is one of the most important traits of a religious personality. It says at the end of the Bible, that the man Moses was the humblest of all the accolades to give Moses, the greatest prophet. You know, whoever lived, we believe, is the humblest. That's what you want to say about him? Right. Yeah, he didn't pretend to know everything, but he did have this gift called the Torah that he gave to the Jewish people and we to the world. So it's very, very important. And I think people struggle with this. I think people want to feel like God's in their life. I'm not saying I can prove this, but the reason why people get angry or disappointed with God, I think, is deep down they believe that God is listening, that God does care, that God can make a difference. And therefore, they're questioning legitimately, why does God take the Jews out of Egypt and save us from that tragedy called slavery? 2 centuries, 210 years of slavery. And where was God during the Holocaust? And where was God during the Spanish Inquisition? And where was God during all those pogroms and anti-Semitism? And that's a very good question. It's a very legit, but you know what it presupposes? It presupposes that you believe that God cares and that he's powerful and he's involved. If you didn't believe that and you just believe in a God of creation, then you wouldn't ask such a question. You'd be like, what do you mean? God created, he did his job, he's done. You know, and I suspect that most people actually believe, but they struggle. They struggle. And you said it beautifully. You know, that's what it means to be a Jew, is to struggle with God. And I think that's what it means to be a religious personality, whether you're a Jew or Christian. I think the day we stop struggling and we think we have it all figured out, you know.
Well,
please.
When you say that they believe, you know, in God, you know, kind of in an innate way, whether or not they're able to acknowledge that or not, you know, I immediately go back to that reality that we are all created in the image of God. There is that stamp of, there's that divine spark. There's that thing that separates us from animals. There's something in humanity that yearns and longs. You know, as you say, people want to say, well, where's God? Well, why do you have an expectation that things should be good? Well, because ultimately they should be. Ultimately, that is God's will. And please God, that will be manifest in the life to come. But we can work for that now. We can be engaged now in Tikkun Olam. We can be engaged now in building bridges of peace and making connections and seeing that come. Now, I don't want to. We're in this intense conversation. People are loving this, folks. If you've just signed in, hit the share button. We're sharing tonight with Rabbi Mark Wilds from the Manhattan Jewish Experience. We're going to talk more about that in a moment. We've got dozens of you online from all over the country on Facebook, and I know there's more watching on YouTube. Hit the share button. Let us know if it's your first time tonight. Yeah, Ann Crinzy, spirituality without a path will lead you nowhere. That's what Rabbi Wilds just said, and it reminded me of Rabbi Brad Hirschfield a few weeks ago, who said something very, very similar when he was with us, and it was just so profound. I'd never considered this before. But Rabbi, I'm going to completely become... I'm going to become lighthearted for a moment, because I was told a well-known secret about you, and so we're going to go to a lighthearted moment. I was told that out of all of the what is it, the shadacha? Is that it? Is that how you say it? Something I'm slaughtering the word.
Oh, halacha of all the Jewish laws?
No. The shadachans. Out of all the shadachans.
Matchmakers.
Of all the matchmakers in Judaism, I've been told you are like the ultimate matchmaker for Jewish young professionals, and that the Manhattan Jewish Experience, you've helped. So is this true? This is something that you've just kind of gifted in.
Well, I would love to take credit. I would love to take credit. We thankfully have had a lot of God's blessing. We have hundreds of people that have met and married at our events in the last 22 years. Hundreds? Yeah. Well, we know of 368 to be precise.
But who's counting?
But who's counting? Who's counting? I'll tell you a story. I have to do a lot of fundraising. I'm sure you as well. And we had a big Jewish philanthropist that came and spoke at the organization. He leaned over to me and he said, "Mark, how many couples met at MJE last year?" And we happened to have a very good year. We averaged about 15. That year, we had 18. So I said 18, and he gets up and he says, "I am prepared to make a substantial contribution to MJE if Mark and Jill, that's my wife, can bring us to 19 next year." Okay, so every time a couple got engaged, I sent a picture of the couple to the philanthropist. And then when I hit 19, I worked very hard that year. When I hit 19, I invited him because I wanted him to see I wasn't making this up. So I invited him to meet all of them, and he wrote a nice check. But listen, there's nothing greater. There's nothing, I don't have to tell you, to bring two people together to find love, and not just love, but to find love and spirituality and a path in life. Because, we do have a lot of people getting married, but not enough of us are staying married. And I also think that the biblical tradition and all the amazing stories of the matriarchs and patriarchs, they're essential for finding that what is necessary, not only to find our soulmate, but to keep them. Beautiful. So important.
Well, it's 368. That's mind blowing. We've had within Eagles Wings. Now, this is not in our whole universe, just in our staff. So within the Eagles Wings staff, we've had 39 marriages, and I was proud. I was proud of 39 marriages, but 368. That's your next level, brother.
39.
Your next level. That's amazing. Michael Harris, thank you so much, Michael Harris, for your kind words. And speaking of fundraising, someone just gave us 100 stars live online right now. Thank you so much. I think that might have been Denise. God bless you. Thank you so much for that donation. Rabbi, take a moment, since we're on the topic, tell us about the Manhattan Jewish Experience, and tell us how do we, whether it's within the Jewish or the Christian context, what is the deep need right now? Let's go to the millennials, right?
Yeah.
What is the deep spiritual need, and how can we actively be reaching out? What have you found successful? I know that a lot of us are concerned that with the increase of technology, the increase of sophistication, life of faith seems somehow antiquated, seems, anachronistic. How do we keep faith vital? And what are you seeing in your outreach?
So I think the need more than ever before. We have one of the most, with all the complaining, one of the most affluent, privileged generations ever. Even though college is crazily expensive, and even this and even that, you compare what our community is going through compared to what my grandparents were going through. Right. My father's father was from Poland and my mother's father was from Germany, and they both escaped their respective situations because of pure anti-Semitism. And I'm only here because of this great country that gave refuge to both sides of my family. And I'm a great patriot, and you can never God bless America enough. And I feel very privileged. And therefore, when I see so many unhappy young men and women, and it's clear to me that because when you strip, we are a composite, as you know, of body and soul. And if you feed the body and you ignore the soul, there's going to be unhappiness. There's going to be unrest. And the social media thing somehow exacerbates it. And I hope you don't mind. This is not a shameless plug, but I wrote a book just 2 years ago, and it's called Beyond the Instant. And it's basically 10 different messages of wisdom from the Bible. I have it right here. It's Jewish wisdom for lasting happiness in a fast-paced social media world. Now, if you look at the cover, I asked 6 or 7 of my students to just sit on a bench and look what they're doing. Their heads are buried in their phones. The woman in the middle, who's my dear friend and student, Casey Levine, I asked her, look up. I want one person looking up. And this is the problem. We are so buried in our phones, and we are looking for love and happiness in all the wrong places. And what we need to demonstrate, and when I say we, I don't just mean the Jewish community. I mean all people of faith. We have to demonstrate that not only can truth be found in a religious tradition, but happiness, love, long-term relationship. And you know what? It's the kind of happiness, that's why I called it beyond the instant. Because everybody, you know, we've got these circumstantial highs and lows, and something happens that's great in your life. You get the girl, you get the promotion, happy. You get dumped, you lose the job, sad. Okay, we all go through that. What is going to provide the long-term beyond the instant? I call it contentment.
Yes, that's right.
Contentment. And there are just so many great, thank you, there's just so many great models in the Bible and lessons from our religious tradition that I think can help people today find that long-term happiness. And a lot of it is also taking responsibility. I have a chapter in the book, you know, it's called The Blame Game, you know, where we're constantly externalizing the blame. We don't take enough responsibility. And I know that would sound like counter to being happy, because if I'm responsible, it makes me less happy. No, that means I can do something about my problems and I can fix the issues. You know, you talked about Tikkun Olam. We have to start Tikkun Olam in here first. We can't go out and start repairing the world when we're broken inside. And listen, this is not the only book, but the Torah is really a self-help guide, as far as I'm concerned. I just put it in a little more, you know, 21st century vernacular for young millennials to be able to appreciate. But there's so much wisdom for lasting happiness. And, you know, I'm on social media a lot. I'm sure you are as well, for the amazing work that you're doing. It sucks you right in. And it's very, very hard not to start looking over your shoulder at other people. How can we learn to be satisfied with what we have? The ethics of our fathers, the oral rabbinic tradition teaches Ezu Ashir, who is a rich person, Hasamech b'chalko, he who is satisfied with what he has. How can we learn to be satisfied with what we have? How can we learn to be grateful people? Simple, basic teachings. Start your day by thanking God for being alive. First prayer that the Jew recites upon arising in the morning, Modeh ani lefanecha, I thank you, God. And by the way, it's not I thank you. It's thank you. We don't want the first word out of our mouth to be I. Thank you, God, for getting me up. And if you start thanking, and it's a habit, it's an action,
Rabbi,
it's a verb.
That's the prayer that you pray the moment you have like kind of consciousness in the morning, correct?
Yeah. We
the very first thing.
The very first thing, and God's name.
Because I remember that was Rabbi Dunner said to us, if you all remember, Rabbi Dunner said, so what we want to do is we want to thank before we think. Before you get to any thoughts, before you get to any, you know, before you're pulled in the literal, your first moments of consciousness, let gratitude frame and begin your day. And that changes everything.
It changes everything. It's a total game changer. If you can start your day by expressing gratitude, the Modeh ani, that prayer we say, by the way, God's name is conspicuously absent because the rabbis wanted us to say it even before we got up and washed our hands and prepared ourselves to take even God's name. They wanted it right away. And then we get more specific in the morning blessings when we pray. We thank God for our sight. We thank God for our clothing. We thank God. I mean, my favorite prayer is the blessing that you say when you come out of the bathroom. And I know that sounds ridiculous. Who says a prayer when they come out of the bathroom? To acknowledge the fact that we can discharge bodily waste. Why should we wait till it gets threatened? I remember I had a surgery years ago, hernia operation. You know, they don't let you leave the hospital until you've moved your bowels, okay? And I remember when I went to the bathroom, I was ready to say that prayer. But you know what? It would be so great if we could learn to appreciate the gifts that we have before they're threatened, while we have them.
That's right. That's beautiful.
We
Folks, we're having an incredible night with Rabbi Mark Wilds from the Manhattan Jewish Experience. We've got folks in from all over the country. Hit the share button. That's your main job tonight. Hit the share button. We're talking about a lot of things. We're talking about Passover, which is the oldest religious observance, continual religious observance in the world. And we're really getting started tonight. Rabbi and his family were just involved in cleansing their home of chametz, which is yeast, which is leaven. That all has to be removed and taken out of the home. And we ask God in this season, take the leaven out of me. Take anything that puffs me up. Take anything that speaks to my ego. Take anything that makes me more than I am. Take that away, God, because you're preparing me for a journey. And it's a journey, yes, of deliverance from slavery, but also a deliverance, a journey of self-discovery. We're about to meet God at the Sinai moment. And it was really that Sinai moment where a nation of slaves became Or Hagoyim. They became the light to the nations. And that is how we, Gentiles, have drawn near to Hashem. We've drawn near to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We've drawn near through Jesus the Jew. It's arguable that he, more than anyone else, that his message brought the name of God, the reality of God, to the nations of the world. And now we're living in this blessed moment. We are living in the moment that after 2,000 years, Israel has been reborn as a nation. We're living in the moment where the exiles have returned from 106 nations of the earth. We're living in the moment where, thanks to Eliezer ben Yehuda, the modern Hebrew language has been restored and is now spoken all around the world. Even Wonder Woman is Israeli. Here we go. We're living in the moment where Jerusalem has been reunified, 1967. We're living in the moment where, as I wrote in the New York Times, after the president declared that he'd move the embassy, that the embassy has been recognized. Jerusalem has been recognized now as the capital by America and increasingly other nations. We're living in the moment where Arab nations, moderate Arab nations, are increasingly making peace with Israel. This is historic. This is unprecedented. And we're living in a moment where rabbis and pastors, Jews and Christians, are coming together around the word of God, not trying to tell each other where we're wrong, not trying to change one another, but resting in the blessed mystery that though there are issues that we disagree on, we disagree respectfully, but we have so much more that we do agree on. And one of the things we agree on so powerfully is the land and people of Israel. Join me in Israel for Awake Jerusalem, September 27th to October 8th. You'll save $100 per person if you register before March 31st. Become a partner and you can help me in this work. We've been at this for 30 years, but we're just getting started. We need you to partner today. And thank you to I think it was Denise who gave the donation tonight. We're so grateful for that. When you become a Watchman or Key of David partner, whatever it is, you get, and Rabbi, this is on its way to you this week. You're going to get this in the mail. This is our official Bishop and the Rabbi mug with the branches and the roots.
Love
and
it.
After you've joined the
Thank you.
company.
Well, can I share one thing with you, Bishop?
Yes,
First of all, God bless you for doing this, and I do think we're living in very special times when Christian and Jewish leaders can sit and talk the Bible. This is just very powerful for me. Beautiful way for me to go into my Passover. You mentioned something about people coming back to Israel after all these years, and I really encourage you to come on that trip with the bishop. So I want to just share a very brief story because I think about the story every Passover, and I think it'll be inspirational for your listeners. So my dad has been an immigration lawyer for his whole life. He's been practicing for almost 60 years. And and he was able to secure a 6-month visitor's visa for a woman by the name of Carmela Raiz when I was in college. Carmela Raiz was a long-term refusenik. For those of you unfamiliar, there were 3 million Jews caught behind the Iron Curtain during the times of the former Soviet Union, clamoring to get out, either to come to America or to go to Israel. The Rabbi's family found God in a godless place called Russia, and they became observant, and they became true Zionists, and they wanted to go to Israel. And for 25 years, they were denied the right to go. My dad got her a visa to come to America to lobby Congress. And I would just want to share one thing, because I know it's late, but this is just so powerful. I think about this every Passover. And my father had a relationship with Edward Koch. He was the mayor of New York City many, many years ago. And he was able to orchestrate a press conference to shine a spotlight on the Rabbi's family's plight. And Carmela came in with one of her 2 sons, whose name was Moshe, and 10-year-old boy. And Koch was a very smart guy. The room was filled with journalists and photographers. And Koch, the mayor, starts asking questions. He says, "What's your name?" to the little boy. And the little boy says, "Moshe." And the mayor says, "Moshe, what's your Russian name? That sounds like a Jewish name." He says, "No, just Moshe." He says, "Well, I'm also Jewish, and my English name is Edward, and my Hebrew name is Isaac, but no, just Moshe." "Well, what's your favorite subject that you like to study in school?" "Moshe." And he says, "Torah." He says, "Torah? You study Torah in school?" "No, we're not. We're forbidden from studying Torah in Russia. My father teaches me Torah." And they're going back and forth. And then Koch says, "Let's go back to your name. Moses was such a great leader. He led the Jewish people, and he brought them to the how did you come to be named after such a great leader?" And his mother chimes in. She says, "Mr. Mayor, if you'll allow me to answer on behalf of my son, 13 years ago, Vladimir, her husband, and I got married, and we said that if God ever blessed us with a son, we were going to name him Moses, and he was going to take us out of this Egypt." And I will never forget that. I will never forget that, because they got out, and they're living in Israel today, the Rabbi's family. And they got out with another 1 million Jews and another 100,000 plus Ethiopian Jews. And when I just thought about that, Bishop, when you brought up how many 106 countries, it's still going on. We are living in modern day exoduses. This Passover holiday is not some relic of. This is it, man.
Yes.
I thought you'd appreciate that.
Well, just India, the B'nai Menashe from India. My friend Michael Freund, the lost tribe of Manasseh, was found in India, and they're coming home. These are powerful and amazing. We could talk for hours, and what a joy, Rabbi Mark, to have you with us tonight, and how grateful we are that in this extremely both busy and holy week for you would take time to spend this moment teaching us. Rabbi, I know so many folks are going to want to follow you on social media. They're going to order your book. How do we connect with you? What's the appropriate handles, etc.?
Very easy. You can just check out. It's on Amazon, Beyond the Instant, if you want to get the book. 10 ideas about finding wisdom for lasting happiness in a fast-paced social media world. I also have a website, markwilds.com. I also have a podcast, Wildscast, if anybody wants to check it out, WILDES, cast.com. The name of the organization is Manhattan Jewish Experience. And if anybody wants to be in touch with me personally, it's markwilds@gmail. I'm happy to talk to you personally, MARKWILDES@gmail.
And you gave us a lot of information there, but give us one more time the website, because that'll be central for them.
So the website is jewishexperience.org.
No, your website.
My website is markwilds.com. That's it, MARKWILDES.com.
Mark Wilds, and there's an E there, WILDES. Did we get that?
That's right.
Okay, wonderful. My incredible tech team, shout out to Danny and Ashley. They've got it right there in the comments. Folks, our time has just slipped away from us again, but what a night we have had. And tonight, I feel that through Rabbi's words, some of the chametz has been taken out of our souls.
Wow.
And we are more prepared for Pesach, because we've learned with this wonderful gift. Rabbi, would you consider coming back and teaching us again sometime?
Are you kidding? It would be my greatest honor. I love this. This was very special for me. I'm not just saying that. I'm just a huge, huge fan of the work you do. My son wanted me to tell you he listens to you all the time. My son Yehuda He's listening right now. He loves you. He loves your show and everything you do. So God bless you, and thank you for having me. He is in 12th grade. He's 18.
Okay, wonderful.
And he's spending his gap year in Israel next year.
So I have an 18-year-old Yitzhak, and so we'll introduce them. They'll be good friends. Isaac, the other day, out of the blue, he's gonna be very angry. Nobody tell Isaac I said this. Out of the blue the other day, he said, "Dad, you know what?" He said, "I think when COVID is over, I want to go spend a year in Israel and join the IDF." That's what he said the other day. So who knows what's going to happen there. Rabbi, it's been awesome having you. Chag Sameach to you,
thank you,
my friend. Pesach Sameach.
You could say two things. Either Chag Sameach, just happy holiday. If you want to be a little more technical, Chag Kasher v'Sameach should be a happy and kosher holiday because of the food we are so careful about we eat on this holiday.
Very good. Beautiful. Everybody, listen up. Tomorrow night, 6 p.m., we'll do the brachot for Shabbat. So 6 p.m., it's just 10 minutes. The family comes together. Or are we doing that? We're not doing that. We are doing that. We'll do it. We're doing it one way or the other. And then Saturday night is Passover. And I think we're going to maybe try to do something real quick for that as well. Anyways, follow along on social media. Sunday morning at thetabernacle.org. I'll be preaching. I'll see you Saturday, partners, in New Jersey, Saturday night, resting place, and Sunday at Calvary Tabernacle in Cranford, New Jersey. Rabbi, final word to you, sir.
I thank you. You know, the Passover Seder is all about gratitude. One of the famous songs we sing is Dayenu, which means I had enough. Sometimes feel that the Seder can go on. They say, Dayenu, let's get to the food already. But Dayenu means if God had just done this and not done that, I would have been happy. If God had just done A and not B, I would. We express gratitude. It means to be a Jew. Judah, we're from the fourth son of Leah, which means Hoda'ah, which means gratitude. I thank you. And I thank you for not just having me on, but for creating this very important relationship between our respective communities. That's my last word. And happy Passover to everyone.
It's a joy and privilege. Happy Passover, Chag Sameach, Hakol. And everybody keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. God bless everybody. Good night.
Good night.